President Akufo-Addo has been making a case at the 74th UN General Assembly on the task of African leaders at reducing poverty and creating prosperity for its people. According to the Ghanaian president, poverty is a daily reality that Africans live with and feel. He observed that too many people are burdened with it, robbing them of dignity, which should be the inherent right of every human being. He also touched on technology and a host of other teething issues characteristic of the continent. Let's bring you excerpts of that address delivered last night in New York.
Of poverty. For us, poverty is a daily reality that we live with and feel. For far too many of our people are burdened with it, and it robs us of the dignity that should be the inherent right of every human being. We know that our performance as governments will be judged by how successful we are in reducing and eventually eradicating poverty in our countries. The responsibility is ours as individual sovereign countries, not only to aim at reducing poverty, but actually to create prosperity for all our citizens. We in Ghana certainly are engaged in fighting to eradicate poverty from our country. If the world wants to marshal all its undoubted energies to support this fight, there cannot be a better start than an acknowledgement and a consensus among the nations of the world that indeed poverty anywhere degrades us all, whether in the developed or developing world. Luckily for us, technological advances are short-circuiting the path that leads us out of poverty, and it is no longer the long and tortuous road it used to be. A mere 20 years ago, mobile phones were a rarity that some fear would become a developed world status symbol and another sign of the technology gap between the rich and the poor. Today, the poorest person in the most inaccessible place in the poorest country has a mobile phone, often a smartphone. In many ways, it has transformed our lives. In the year 2000 in Ghana, there were 90,000 mobile phone subscribers. Today, there are more than 41 million subscriptions. This has led to a remarkable difference in communications within our country and with the outside world. A sizable and growing number of the population has been and is being brought into the formal banking sector by the mobile phone. Mr. President, the application of technology can be the tool to set us on the road to prosperity. The modernization of agriculture through the application of technology could well turn out to be the fastest way to make the turnaround that we seek. The young people of the world, especially the youth of Ghana and Africa, have demonstrated their ingenuity and innovative prowess, and we need to enlist them fully in the fight. It would be an easier battle, of course, if trade practices were seen to be more equitable and fairer. The question always remains whether the rich nations are prepared for an equitable and fair trading order. It appears that they are not, and we have thus to continue to fight for a fairer world economic order. It should not be lost on anyone that the minerals on which the world depends to move industry and manufacturing are mostly available in Africa. And yet we, who own these fundamental resources by birthright, have remained poor, whilst our minerals have brought vast wealth to nations and peoples outside our continent. It is worth pointing out also that not only do we not get a fair share of the wealth once extracted, our lands, our environment, our oceans are often left devastated by the process, and the competition to gain control over these minerals has often led to insecurity in our countries. I do not seek to blame outsiders for our problems, but since we're being urged to find multilateral solutions, I believe it is worth pointing out that unfairness in the economic order undermines the fight against poverty. Indeed, the flight of capital is continuing the foreign exploitation of Africa, represented by colonialism and imperialism. The report of the panel, chaired by the highly respected former South African President, Thabo Mbeki, on the illicit flow of funds from Africa, has raised the lid on what many had always suspected, but did not have the figures to support. According to that report, Africa is losing annually more than 50 billion United States dollars through illicit financial outflows. Collaboration is certainly needed amongst nations of the world to stop this rape of Africa. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which recently came into effect and whose secretariat Ghana has the honor of hosting, is a major collective effort by Africa to get to grips with mastery of her own development. It will be the world's largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization, and will provide the vehicle for us to trade better among ourselves, offer an opportunity to exploit our abundant wealth and resources for the benefit of our peoples, and give us protection in how to deal with other trading blocs.
And of course, he ended that speech with the famous quote, "Birds do not sing because they have answers, but because they have a song."